All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Hey, it's Eric here at Modus RX Physical Therapy. And we're going to kick off our Frequently Asked Friday segment here. I had notes that I was going to use for a different frequently asked question that we get. But given the light of what had happened this week, there was, I would just say, some good reason that I'm going to hold off. I'm going to sleep on and think a little bit more about how I want to answer that frequently asked question, because it's something I get a little passionate about, and it was the do you take insurance question. So we can look at that another day. Maybe I'll wrap my mind around it a little bit better so that I don't go overboard on my thoughts and my passion about it. But today we're going to talk about something very, very common that I hear and that I talk about with individuals all the time, is the aspect of stretching and mobilizing. And really, if you've been doing it for a long period of time, why it may not be helping. So common thing I get is people will say that they saw an exercise on YouTube or saw a list of exercises, the best 7 stretches to do for their shoulder or their neck or their hip. And they'll tell me that they've been doing it for weeks, sometimes even months. And I mean this with the utmost respect, but that is potentially one of the worst things that somebody could do, is to jump into an exercise based on a symptom that they're feeling without understanding the why behind it. So the biggest thing that I will tell people is, if somebody emails me or comes through the door and says, I have this issue going on, I'm tight in my shoulder, I'm tight in my neck, I'm tight in my hip, can you just give me some stretches? The problem with that is, without me understanding why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, why you're feeling that tightness, just handing out exercises that I think are potentially going to be beneficial for you, that borders on malpractice. So you really want to understand what's going on before you go on and take some action with it. And that's what I'll tell people often. So, I mean, with the utmost respect, there's some good content out there. I think people mean well, especially other practitioners and people online. They'll give their list of 7 or 9 of the best exercises out there for something in particular. And sometimes it's going to get the job done. But at a certain point, if you've been doing it for weeks and months and it's not making a difference, there might be something else going on. So why stretching and mobilizing your neck, your shoulders, your hips, why that doesn't necessarily always help, even though you feel tight, is because the body is going to adapt for deficiencies and limitations you have in areas where you shouldn't necessarily. So I'm going to use the example, because it's so common, is I'm going to use the example of the tight neck, okay? So the upper neck is meant to move quite a bit. The lower neck is actually meant to be a little bit more stable. And then connecting with your shoulder blades, that's meant to be quite the stable base for your head to sit on and move on. If the shoulder blades and the base of the neck are not strong enough, stable enough, have some sort of past injury, it could be 7 more reasons why, your body will compensate and pick up the necessary stability requirements that your body has to stay upright against gravity, press 125 pounds overhead, whatever it might be. And so your body now becomes stable, or it's expressing that it needs stability in an area where it's supposed to be tight. So if you've been doing a lot of neck stretches because the neck feels tight and it feels good for a little while, but then it doesn't necessarily give you the results that you're looking for, it would be beneficial to potentially look and see, is there something underneath that tightness that you're feeling, in light of, is there an area that's not as stable or as strong as it should be, making your neck feel tight even though it's actually not that tight. Another good example is the shoulder. So There's a lot of banded shoulder mobility work, and PVC pass-throughs we'll see a lot of people doing. I would even say soft tissue work with foam rollers at times to improve the mobility of the shoulder. Well, it could feel good for a little while, and it could give you some benefit in the right situation when you actually have a stiff shoulder. But again, many individuals have a weak shoulder blade, and so the shoulder blade is the base or the connection point of your arm to the trunk. And so when that shoulder blade isn't doing its job as well, the ball and socket of your shoulder now becomes, feels like it needs to become a stabilizer for any activity that you have. And it's not going to be able to have the mobility requirements that it needs because the shoulder blade's not doing its job. To eliminate the technobabble and all that and really try to give you an analogy, it's kind of like shooting a cannon off of land versus shooting a cannon off of a boat. The shoulder that doesn't have good shoulder blade strength and stability, that's going to be like shooting a cannon off of a boat. The boat is unstable. The cannon doesn't have a good base to work from. So the ball, which would in this case be similar to the ball and socket of your shoulder, the ball is not going to go very far because it's not working from a sound base. Otherwise, or opposite end of that is if you're shooting a cannon off of land, then that ball is going to go a lot farther, i.e. your shoulder is going to be more mobile because you're working that shoulder or you're shooting that cannon off of a stable base. So it's really, really important to make sure you understand why you're having the tightness. And just because you feel tight in certain areas, neck, shoulders, hips, doesn't necessarily mean that tightness and mobility is your true issue. Now, if anybody has questions about that, certainly you're looking for, okay, well, how do I find that out? We do discovery visits or free taster sessions all the time. So if you just have a question about what's going on, we're more than happy to get you in here for 20, 30 minutes. The other thing that we can do is I'll leave my free guide and report in the comments section, which is 9 ways to bulletproof your body for any workout. And there are some self-assessments and some tools in that report that will basically give you an idea of if you're stable where you need to be stable so that the neck, shoulder, hip is able to be as mobile as we'd want it, okay? So if you've been mobilizing and stretching for weeks and weeks and weeks and you're not seeing relief, you're not increasing reps and times and weight in the gym, your performance is limited at your sport or on the golf course, and you think there's a tightness issue, you got to be careful because tightness can be deceiving. Typedom is the symptom, but we need to figure out what the true cause of that tightness is. And that's what we like to think our bread and butter is here. So again, any questions or anybody has any specific concerns about that, certainly let me know. We can put the report in the comments for everybody to access if they're interested. And then again, if you have any questions about this stuff, reach out. It does not pay to be mobilizing and stretching without a good idea of why you're doing it. And again, I mean it with the utmost respect, but if you're doing something from online or from somebody else that they gave you and it was a list of stretches but didn't have a reason as to why you're doing them, then there could be some let's just say it could be a long time before you're seeing the results that you want from something like that. So hope everybody has a great weekend. I feel a lot better about talking about this than what I was going to talk about. Maybe I'll talk about the other thing next weekend since it's Father's Day, and if anybody has any big disagreements or is mad at me for what I'm going to say, then at least it'll be Father's Day, so maybe they'll cut me some slack. But hope everybody's doing really, really well. We were going to try to keep this Frequently Asked Friday going, usually around noon every Friday, and it'll be a good way to get out some of those commonly asked questions that other people might have. All right? Everybody have a great weekend.